would like to tell you all a story. I was once playing Dungeons and Dragons with a group of my friends. Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game, which in layman's terms is just a board game that you play while acting as a character that you're playing in said board game. Okay. I was playing as the DM, or the Dungeon Master. DM is God in the board game. Anything that happens in the board game is because the DM says it's happening. So anytime the players desire to do something, they have to ask the DM if they can do it. A good example of this is when my friend asked to cast the spell, Detect Good and Evil. When he asked this, I was very confused. What good and evil? My good and evil? Your good and evil? The good and evil of the game? Is there good and evil of the game? And when I asked him this, he also got confused. He didn't know what any of them meant, and then we promptly forgot about it and continued on with the night. But when they left and I was cleaning up, I was left thinking, wondering, what is good and evil as defined by Dungeons and Dragons? And later on, a more refined question of what is Dungeons and Dragons moral philosophy? Hi there, my name is Samuel Moore. Let me talk you through it. First up, moral philosophy. What is that? Moral philosophy is what a person believes is right or wrong. Example, some Christian sects believe that going to church every Sunday is right and drinking alcoholic beverages is wrong. Is it a bit generalization? Yes. Do you understand? Hopefully. It is what somebody believes. Yeah. And we're going to substitute right and wrong with good and evil as the source.com says that they're synonyms, and we are allowed to do that. But Sam, yes, Mr. Stock Image, the definition of moral philosophy only applies to singular people. How can you find a moral philosophy of a world, let alone a fictional one? That's a good question, Mr. Stock Image, and I believe we can find the answer in this. This is a YouTube video essay entitled, Does Call of Duty Believe in Anything? Written, edited, and just made entirely by YouTube video essayist and author Jacob Geller. In this YouTube video essay, he analyzes Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 to find out what it believes. And he found that Call of Duty believes that biochemical warfare is wrong, and the ends do in fact justify the means. 6 years later, he went further into this research by analyzing every torture scene in the Call of Duty franchise, but you don't care about that. How did he do this? That's what you care about. How did he find these things out? Perspective. Quite simply. He looked at how the story framed something. When somebody used biochemical warfare, they were framed as being evil. Thus, biochemical warfare is wrong in the eyes of Call of Duty. We can see this in other fictional worlds. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Non-violence is typically seen as the right thing to do, as the main character constantly advocates for it, and is proven correct in the end that being non-violent was the correct answer. Thus, being non-violent is good in this story's point of view. Pursuit of Happiness. It believes in determination and perseverance, because when the main character perseveres and has determination, he succeeds. Mob Psycho and The Good Place believe in people changing for the better, with how the main characters talk to the antagonists and how at the end the antagonists do in fact change for the better. That's what it believes in. But there is a problem. Dungeons and Dragons is a world, not a story. It has a story, but not really a lens to look it through. It's just a world that has existed. How are we supposed to find the moral philosophy of a world if we don't have a lens to look through it? Luckily for us, we do. This, my friends, is the Dungeons & Dragons alignment chart with two axes, law versus chaos, and good versus evil. Here is an easier to read one for you. The first axis, law versus chaos, is easily understood, and I skipped ahead. Every player, creature, and monster has an alignment. Doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you have an alignment. Unless you are unaligned, but I will get to that later. The first axis is well understood, law versus chaos. I'm going to explain it right now. If you're lawful, you follow a set of rules. Yes, you steal, but you steal only from the rich. Yes, you steal candy, but only from babies. Chaotic, you don't follow a set of rules. You're just doing what you do. You're walking down the road, there's a broken window. You're going to fix that broken window. Who cares? You don't. You're just going to do what you're going to do. And neutral, in between lawful and chaotic, is you swap between the two, or you're just a bit of both. The second axis, good versus evil, is why we're here today. It is not well understood, but that hasn't really stopped people from trying. Mr. Soulsboyne on Reddit believes that it's about sacrifice. If you sacrifice yourself, you're good. If you sacrifice others, you're evil. Mr. Ionic Pancakes believes that it's about ends justify the means. If they do, you're evil. If they don't, you're good. And then Boris Borhan also believes in sacrifice, but his definition of sacrifice and good and evil contradicts Soulsboyne's definition of sacrifice. It's all just hearsay, what people believe. It's all just veterans saying what they believe from their games. But why don't we just ask Wizards of the Coast? They make Dungeons & Dragons. They make the alignments. They should have definitions. And they do. Here are all the definitions. I'm not going to ask you to read all of them. I'm just going to ask you to read these. Typically, many, traditionally, typically, there is no standardized. It's all vague. There's nothing solid. And this one just really grinds my gears. The right thing that's expected by society, which one? Our society? Your society? The society in the game? What if there's a society in the game that thinks cannibalism is okay, but every other society thinks that cannibalism isn't okay? Are they lawful good or are they lawful evil? They have nothing solid to stand on. It's all just hearsay. Except the unaligned. This is the only definition provided to us that makes sense. Most creatures that lack capacity for rational thought don't have alignment. They're unaligned. This is your animals. They don't think. There's just a cat or a dog. They don't have an alignment. This is the only one that is not vague. This is the only one that is good. All these other ones, garbage. But that's okay. It's just a silly little board game, right? Just that you play with your friends. No! Dungeons & Dragons is a world with a standardized rule set, standardized moral system. We should know what the moral system is. Right? We need new definitions. And I, along with the assistance of my research coach, shall cook up some new definitions for the Dungeons & Dragons player base. What am I going to do? Huh? How am I going to figure this out? This is how I'm going to figure this out. My friends, this is the Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual. It has 384 pages and 251 creatures. Every single creature has an illustration, description, alignment, stat block, all of that jazz. What we care about are the alignments, as previously stated, and the descriptions. How are we going to use these? Let me explain. This is an example. This is the Doodle Cat, and we can look at its description and find its traits. In its description, it shreds curtains, is gluttonous, and doesn't obey the laws of physics. Then we can look at its alignment. Chaotic evil. We can just ignore this. We know what that means. We want to focus on this. So then, we put it on the evil board. We put it and all of its traits on it, and we draw lines between it and its traits, so that we know that it has these traits. Then we find another evil creature, say a gibbering mouther. Then we find all of its traits and put those traits on the board, draw lines in between it, yada yada. Oh! It too is gluttonous. And say these are the only two creatures that we're doing. Then we can remove all the traits that only have one line going to them, because that's not an evil trait, that's just a trait of the creature. And whoop-de-doo, being gluttonous is evil. Hooray! We just do that for every creature and every trait. Eventually, it's going to look something like this. Ta-da! That's what it's going to look like. Every trait, every creature, mapped out onto a detective board of sorts. Sorry for knocking that over. Limitations. I can't just do this willy-nilly. There's always something. It's philosophy. Everything I'm talking about, take a grain of salt with it. I'm trying to find the philosophy of a fictional world through the lens of my eyes, which have my own philosophy through them. Somewhere in this research project, my philosophy has contradicted something. There's bias in here, and I don't know where it is, and it terrifies me. So just take everything with a grain of salt. Also, I limited myself to only the 5th editions, because those are the only editions that I have, and they are the most current. If I went even further into the older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, I'll maybe have a different answer, or just more evidence for my answer. But now, yeah, but why? Why should you care? Why should you care why I'm doing this? You don't have to. This isn't for you. This is for us. The Dungeons & Dragons community. This is for the DMs that want to write a philosophically accurate Dungeons & Dragons campaign. This is for the people who want to play an evil goblin. I want to go up to this person and say, hey, here's what you have to do to be evil, okay? This is for all the people with 9 to 5 that don't got time for all this philosophizing. This is for bards to know what to say, for paladins to know what to protect, for rogues to know what to ignore, and it's so that we know what detect good and evil actually means. Can I get an amen? Thank you. And now, for the real meat and potatoes of my presentation, the results. Dungeons & Dragons moral philosophy is based on nature. Hooray! We figured it out! But what does that mean? Dungeons & Dragons moral philosophy based on nature means that if you are of nature, you don't have an alignment. You're unaligned. But once you step out of that cycle, you gain an alignment. You are neutral. So if you emphasize the traits of nature, you are good. But if you go against the traits of nature, you are evil. Allow me to elaborate. First up, unaligned. These are your animals, your jaguars, your lions, all of that. All of these may look like evil manifestations of a nightmare being, but these are just animals and plants. Do not let the fantastical setting confuse you. And you may look at the Displacer Beast. It's a panther with 6 legs, and it uses illusions to trick play. You may think, yeah, that's just an animal. That's going to be unaligned. But I'd like you to read this. They can't be deterred until either they or a quarry is slain. This makes them evil. How? Because to be evil is to go against nature. But how is this unnatural? According to Biology for Majors, Lumen Learning, animals do not want to expend energy to catch the prey. They're going to have to, but they don't want to. To displace a beast in constantly hunting their quarry without giving up is unnatural because they usually don't want to expend more energy than they have to. Another unnatural thing we can see is with manticores and perytons who prefer a specific type of prey. In nature, you don't care. If it's in front of you and it's edible, you're going to eat it. So them having this preference is unnatural and thus they are evil. Violence is also a very prevalent trait, the most prevalent. But you may say, nature is violent, isn't it? Yes. Nature is very violent, but nature is not violent because it wants to be, it is violent because it has to be. But these creatures, they're violent because they want to be, they enjoy it, they seek it out. That is unnatural, that is evil. Quickfire evilness. Manipulating people is evil. Destroying nature, that goes against nature, that is evil. Being a narcissist is evil. Being undead is like the biggest evil you can do. Because death is like the most natural thing ever, entropy and all that stuff. What about neutrality? What does it mean to be neutral? Neutral creatures can be confined into 4 categories. The first I found are servants. Not servants like, yeah, you're willingly serving this person, because willingly serving an evil creature is evil, as I found through my research. But if you are summoned and you don't have a mind and you're just like, oh, what am I supposed to do? And somebody tells you what to do, you are neutral. You may be doing something evil, but you're not doing it out of evil intentions. You're just made to do that thing. Another category are creatures that are above alignments, but as they are not of nature, they still need one, thus they are neutral. Animal lords and Empyreans are basically just gods, but again, they may be above alignments, but they still need one because they're not directly of nature. Another one is species. These are just people. They're commoners, they're us, but they just look different. Kenku and kobolds, they're just people. They have lives. They can be good or evil. They are neutral. And the last one is jobs. If you are a tough gladiator, assassin, knight, whatever, you may kill people and search out violence, but you're doing it because it's your job, not because you want to. That is to be neutral. But what is good? Good is to emphasize the aspects of nature. I'd like to go back to this. Not trying to use energy as much as you can, trying to avoid violence as you can. This is where non-violence comes up. Non-violence is one of the most prevalent traits in good creatures. But of course, in nature, you don't want to fight, but you're going to have to. Non-violence is a very common trait in good creatures, probably the most common. There are several tied to be the most common. Yeah. Defending nature. If nature is the moral philosophy and you defend the thing of nature, that is good. And then sharing knowledge is also a very common trait, and as it is a common trait, I found that it is good. We share knowledge with each other. We shared how to make fire, how to grow crops, agriculture. It is natural to share knowledge with others of your species and all of that. And I would like to go back to moral philosophy. Good and evil, right and wrong. Those are opposites, which means, those are opposites. And if we look at these two, nonviolence and defending nature, those are opposites of destroying nature and being violent. They are opposites. So if we take one trait of either good or evil, we can flip it, and that will be the opposite trait. And using this, we can find that not preferring one creature over another, being blunt, being humble, and to accept death are all good traits of a creature, because they are opposite of being evil. One last thing before I finish off. Dungeons & Dragons believes that evil is much more prevalent than good, as we can see with the 123 evil and 24 good. This could be a thing of game design, but as I'm not looking at it as a game, this does not apply here. This is a world. This world is more evil than it is good. If it's saying something about our world, I cannot say. So did I figure it out? Did I? Yes, I did. I threw the confetti. It's nature. Hooray! But that's not all I said I was going to do. There's still these garbage, terrible, vague definitions. I said I was going to cook up some new ones, didn't I? So here are those definitions. Good creatures are protectors. Protectors of nature, of others, of structure and integrity. They prefer to talk, to negotiate, but do not shy from violence when it is deemed necessary. Knowledge is for all, not for one. To strive by oneself for oneself will only lead to failure by the hands of the community and society that good creatures covet and create. If you define yourself to any part of this definition, you are a good creature. Neutral creatures do what they have to. They go to work to make money. They study their magic. They figure out what they want to do what is best for you and those who need you, and vice versa. If working for someone gets you where you need to, then it's all right to do some evil. It will all end up good. Or if you're a bit evil and a bit good, or fluctuate between good and evil, you're neutral as well. So if you have any of these traits and don't have the traits of the other two alignments, you are neutral. Evil creatures are destroyers. Destroyers of nature, of others, of structure and integrity. They want things and they want them done as quickly as possible. And if the quickest it can be completed is eons of centuries, then so be it. To manipulate, maim, lie, goad, fight, and kill are the best way to get things done. They're the most efficient. Care only for what can be done. Care not for how others are affected. Enjoy the process and die trying. If you subscribe yourself to any part of this definition, you are evil. Thank you.